morning here on WYDC TV Big Box. I'm your host, Frank Aiken, and we are broadcasting live from the Henderson studio here on Market Street in Corning. And I'm so glad that you joined us this morning. We have a lot to cover, a lot of breaking stories. A little bit later on in the program, we'll be talking with the president of Watkins Glen International, Don Burlew. She'll be telling us about upcoming race weekend happening next weekend to get you prepared for all the fun events starting on Thursday. We'll hear all about that from Don in the next hour. We'll be taking all of your comments and doing the best we can to read them on the broadcast. And that's what we call the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program. So let's kick off with that, shall we? Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Mark. Who needs guns? Pour gas on them and burn them is a new weapon. Like I said yesterday, guns are not the only tool in the toolbox of a radical person. Instead of gun reform, I think some people need mental health checks. Obviously, there has to be a bigger discussion on mental health. That is sorely overlooked when these conversations begin. Oh, my song ran long. Darn it. Sorry, guys. I apologize. I've been doing better at checking that. In this instance, I didn't. So I hope. Well, let's read it again. Mark writes in, who needs guns? Pour gas on them and burn them is the new weapon. Like I said yesterday, guns are not the only tool in the toolbox of a radical person. Instead of gun reform, I think some people need mental health checks. Well, to Mark's point, a city councilman in Virginia yesterday was set on fire by a lunatic who stormed into his workplace carrying gallons of fuel and igniting the lawmaker. It's the latest sickening attack against an American elected official. Danville City Councilman Lee Vogler was allegedly set on fire after, I don't know how you say this name, Shotzi Michael Buck Hayes, 29, barged into a local monthly publication and dumped a 5-gallon bucket of gasoline on the politician around 11:30 a.m. Vogler, a 38-year-old married father of two, managed to escape the office and ran to the front of the building, but the monster followed him and torched him. The extent of the injuries are unknown at this time, but Brooks, being the police officer, I believe, noted he was awake and talking following the terrifying incident. Yes, it's sad, to Mark's point, but just in general, something we've talked about on this program. After the senseless shooting in Manhattan, you've had Governor Hochul, you've had so many. I mean, I just point to ones that affect us directly, calling for gun control or outright bans on certain weapons. You had Mamadani echoing that. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the program. Comment from a different viewer. Trump beat the brains of Harvard. Yeah, he's going after them a little bit harder than he did Columbia, and rightfully so. If you recall at the time, Harvard, well, not that Columbia made out. I mean, there was still a fine of $200 million. But Harvard, last I saw, they're looking at, $500 million? I haven't heard anything finalized on that. But Harvard, let's face it, is the university where the president said, no, I'm willing to take a pay cut to stand with the anti-Semitic protesters who are harassing and intimidating our Jewish students. All right, breaking yesterday. Kamala Harris has announced she will not run for California governor, which does clear the way for her to run in 2028. Now, I do believe she has that ego. We know, they tried to rewrite history, but before Biden dropped out, even Democrats were saying that she was not the right fit to be president, that she had not been an effective vice president, not necessarily the candidate they wanted. That's why, if you recall, and some of this is speculation, some of it has been, it's just kind of common sense. When Biden was finally forced out by the people he had been loyal to for 50 years, it was speculated that Obama and others wanted a quick primary, and Biden, and maybe what you could call his last-ditch power move, that was probably Jill, endorsed Harris right away. And Democrats went from saying she's not a good candidate, she wouldn't win a primary, she's not going to be successful, to, oh, she's the best. She is the best. It's amazing how that works. Harris said yesterday, I love the state, its people, and its promise. It is my home. But after deep reflection, I've decided that I will not run for governor in this election. For now, my leadership and public service will not be in elected office. I look forward to getting back out and listening to the American people, helping elect Democrats across the nation who will fight fearlessly, and sharing more details in the months ahead about my own plans. Is that a nod to a potential 2028 run? And also, if you were a Democrat that wanted to run for elected office at whatever level, and Kamala Harris calls up and said, hey, I'll rally with you, I'll campaign with you, do you think you want that? Do you think you want Kamala Harris helping you get elected? Now, prior to the announcement, Harris was widely believed to be contemplating three options for her political future: a run for California governor, seeking the presidency again in 3 years, or remaining on the sidelines following the blowout 2024 loss at the hands of Donald Trump, just moving on to a kind of a different profession. Rumors that Harris was weighing, a run for the governorship notably failed to clear a crowded Democrat primary field. There's a lot of people running, and they continue to run even though Harris's name was being thrown around. Governor Gavin Newsom, another 2028 potential, I don't even think you have to say potential, contender who is term limited, will leave office in early 2027, issuing a statement about Harris saying, Harris has courageously served our state and country for her entire career. Whether it be as prosecutor, attorney general, senator, or vice president, she's always kept a simple pledge at the heart of every decision she's made. For the people, grateful for her service. All right, a little bit. Now, I'm not going to say I'm surprised. I did think she would run for governor, but this makes me believe that she does still have that delusion of grandeur, because the polling shows that she's number one right now, but that only makes sense when she ran for 107 days and spent $2 billion to get her name out there, that she would be at the top of the list. That's just mathematically, financially, common sense. $2 billion, over $2 billion. Last I knew, they were still in debt. She overspent. So you're looking at a lot of ad time, a lot of flyers, a lot of signs. So yes, she would be number one until the primary season kicks off, because if you recall, when she ran for president the first go around, she had one good debate performance, crashed and burned the second debate performance. She never even got a single primary vote because she never made it that far to the primary voting season. So I think this signals a run for 2028. Now, the Republican Governors Association released a statement after her announcement saying Kamala Harris's political career is over thanks to President Trump. Look no further than her decision to not run for governor. She would have been a disaster for California, tanking the state's economy even further, protecting criminal illegal immigrants over law-abiding citizens, and further bringing the Democrat Party brand down with her, just like she did as vice president. Americans across the country can sigh in relief that they won't have to see or hear from Kamala Harris any longer. I think that's a little wishful thinking, or they're trying to get the cart before the horse there. I do believe there's something in her future. Now, if that is a presidential run, I don't think she'll be successful. I don't think she would win the primary. But that seems to be the direction she's headed. Remember, we know she had an ego. We know she ran a bad campaign as well. Over $2 billion. Think of what she would do with your tax dollars. If that's what she did with her supporters' money, and then losing in a landslide election, imagine what she would do with your tax-paying dollars. Hey, as an update from yesterday's program, it sounds like I was a little spot on. I was mentioning Cory Booker went on this big, long, rambling speech. He likes doing that now, where he basically was blaming Democrats for not doing enough. Knowing full well that they're in the minority and are being as much of a resistance as they possibly can be. I mean, in most instances, I would say even more than 9 times out of 10, they are unanimous in their no votes for anything that is Trump supported. So I said yesterday it was disingenuous, and him turning on his own party was to gain attention for himself, the me idea. But as I kind of predicted, this is not going to make his fellow Democrats happy. Yes, everybody knows he wants to be the face of the resistance. Yes, everybody knows Cory Booker will throw anybody under the bus to potentially run for president in 2028. He's always had the ambition to be president. Well, Democrats on MSNBC, they had a panel. They mocked Cory Booker for his grandstanding behavior on the Senate floor, so he bit off a little more than he could chew. arguing it was more about boosting his public image rather than solving problems. We were ahead of the curve on this program, if you watched yesterday. Booker accused his fellow Democrat senators of aligning themselves with Trump because they are in favor of passing new police legislation. He claimed that without amendments, the legislation would allow the president to pick winners and losers in terms of who receives the benefits. Quote, that is complicity with an authoritarian leader who is trashing our country. It is time for Democrats to have a backbone. It's time for us to fight. It's time for us to draw a line. And when it comes to the safety of my state being denied these grants, that's why I'm standing here. Well, those on Morning Joe were not impressed. Contributor Mike Barnacle saying, well, it's great theater that we just saw. Cory Booker, good guy, standing up and yelling on the floor of the United States Senate. What I don't understand is he's yelling at two other Democrats. The Democrats have enough problems in this country defining themselves to people, making sure people know they are alive, that they are interested in your life, that they are interested in you solving problems. Former Democrat Senator Claire McCaskill argued that Booker is simply playing to the desires of the Democrat Party's base. Here's what he's doing, or here's what's going on. The Democratic base is starving for a fighter. They're starving for a fight. They want people to fight Donald Trump because everyone is so frustrated and angry and depressed at everything he's doing and how he's doing it. And the cowardice of the Republicans across the aisle in the Senate who are knowingly doing terrible things and casting votes that I would have never dreamt they would cast when I was serving with them in the Senate. But there's another key aspect of this as well, she said, defending Democrats like Senator Amy Klobuchar as people trying to do their best that they can under the Trump administration. On the other side, you have Cory Booker unfairly criticizing two strong Democrats that are doing everything they can in their power to fight Donald Trump. And you know, Amy's right. There's a way to change a bill, and there's a way to get in the opening segment of Morning Joe and on the front page of the New York Times. And Cory chose the latter rather than the former. Ooh. Suggesting that he was grandstanding, that it was all about him, exactly what we said on this program. He knew if he did this, it would be a viral moment, and he would be associated with Democrats who are willing to fight. Yes, he has wanted to be the face of the resistance from the beginning. That's why he gave, and again, I think it is the Democrat Party in a nutshell. He spoke for a very long time, 25 hours and 5 minutes, and accomplished absolutely nothing. So he said a lot of rambling things, a lot of hot air. And at the end of that 25 hours and 5 minutes, absolutely nothing was accomplished except for he got the attention he wanted. And, mind you, he is now writing a book about it. McCaskill added, meanwhile, this bill didn't impact funding, and there probably was not the leverage to do what Cory would like to do, which is defy Donald Trump, because we don't have the votes in the Senate. And he fully knows that. But again, like she said, this is to get that viral clip so the people that are constantly protesting can say, oh, wow, Cory stands with us. Cory knows we don't have the votes in the Senate and do what the base wants us to do, what the base wants us to do. So the way he criticizes his colleagues is really unusual, kind of unheard of, and frankly, to me, a little worrisome with what we have in front of us and the fight the Democrat Party needs to wage next year in the midterms. Yes, I also think he played to those that don't understand the system, to those that don't understand how being in the minority works. You know, maybe they're a younger person who's never been in this situation, or maybe they're just that blinded by rage, and, you know, that's why they'll say, do something. Well, the way the system works is they are doing the best that they can, which means they're accomplishing nothing because there are just no votes in the minority fighting every tooth and nail, everything Trump proposes. Now, we've got a lot to talk about with Trump, by the way, which is really impressive when it comes to the economy. We do have some New York State issues. I've got two stories that I want to bring to you in the next segment because I'm afraid that we may run out of time, and I don't want to run out of time. I think they're this important. Before we talk about the economy, before we talk about state issues, before we talk about international issues, because we have a lot to cover this morning. So stay with us. We're just getting warmed up. You're watching Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you for joining us. Comments from viewers during the Student Senior Services Fund section of our program. Harris is number one. Yeah. The pollster's question was, do you know Harris? Great. Thanks for giving Harris the nod. Yeah, it's basically what it boils down to. It's just name recognition. After spending over $2 billion, she should have it, right? It doesn't mean that she's the favorite in the sense of that's who people want to run or that people think would win. Another comment, anyone who would stand around babbling for over 25 hours straight belongs in a padded cell. So I'm guessing you're not going to purchase his book about it's cringe worthy. I know that's overused now. It's called Stand. Okay. I want to mention this by John Stossel because I think it's an important piece, and then we'll move along to kind of the breaking stories of the day, but I just don't want to forget this because I think it puts a lot of things in the context that we talked about. Americans like licenses. People think they make us safer. We license drivers. We license dogs. But most government licensing is useless or harmful. It limits competition, raises costs, leaves consumers with few choices, and blocks opportunities for people who want to work. Michelle Freener, a tour guide in Savannah, Georgia, gets good reviews from customers, but her business almost didn't get off the ground because local politicians said, quote, no one can be a tour guide without first getting a government license. Bill Durrance, a Savannah alderman at the time, told me why it's important. Quote, I hear a lot of tour guides saying things that make me cringe. The licensing and testing I thought was a good idea just to make sure people had the accurate information. Well, while they're at it, the politicians added other requirements. Anyone who wanted to give tours had to have a criminal background check, including urine and blood samples, take a physical fitness test, pay fees to the city, and pass a difficult history test. A college-level history exam with tons of obscure gotcha questions, Freener said. It could be 3 to 5 months of studying and studying. It was 120 pages. Ironically, the test asked no questions about subjects covered by the most popular Savannah tours, ghost tours and Forrest Gump tours. The movie's bench scene was filmed in the city, if you were wondering. Freener complained to a city official, there's no ghost questions on this test. His response, ghosts aren't real. Why would a city pass rules that block people merely from speaking? The city was making a nice amount of money for people failing this, said Freener. When confronting Alderman Durrance about this, he admitted there were a couple of points that maybe went a little too far in the licensing process. Having to have the physical exam periodically, maybe the cost of the test. Little by little, we've managed to get control of some things, but we still don't have control over a lot, because that meaning regulations. He's a big fan of regulations. They control much too much already. With the help of the libertarian law firm, the Institute for Justice, Freener sued Savannah and won. Now Savannah has no licensing rule. Washington, D.C. killed its rule after IJ sued as well. IJ also won in Philadelphia and Charleston, where a court ruled that the licensing requirement was unconstitutional because, as IJ attorney Robert McNamara put it, the First Amendment protects your right to speak for a living, whether you're a journalist, a comedian, or a tour guide, which is a good point. The point is we don't need most of these complex consumer protection laws. Competition alone protects customers. Freener said it well. The free market is taking care of itself. Bad tour companies don't last. A competitive market helps consumers much more than licensing laws ever will. If such laws were once needed, they weren't. They definitely aren't needed now that the internet exists because it's so easy for consumers to learn about what's good and what's bad. But politicians always want more control over us. And this is to a topic that we talked about yesterday when it comes to global warming. And yes, it is all about the money, just like in this instance, but it's also about the control over you. 8 years have passed since the Institute for Justice fought Freener's case. Despite their victories in court, cities like New Orleans and New York still have tour guide licensing rules. New York City guides are told to pass a 150-question exam. Now, many tour guides ignore the rules, knowing bureaucrats are not likely to enforce them. That expands the illegal underground economy, inviting actual harm. Government's rules almost always have nasty, unintended consequences. Licensing bureaucrats should regulate much less. We're supposedly free people. It should be up to us how we spend our money. I just thought that was a really interesting, quick little piece by John Stossel about what we're dealing with when it comes to bureaucracy and when we talk about how important it is to vote at the local level. In that instance, it's a great point that you have, in this case, an alderman, I think they said, right? Not councilman, an alderman, that decided, you know what, I just thought there should be more rules put into place on tour guides. Boom. Now, most people probably don't know, sadly, who their council person is, who their alderman is, who their mayor, town supervisor, whatever the case may be. They may not even know who it is. And then they go into the booth and they just say, oh, I kind of recognize that name, or I think I went to school with that person. Boom. That's why we try to do our best on this program to get you all the candidates so you know who and what you're voting for. But in that situation, it's another great example of these nameless, faceless bureaucrats, or in this case, local politicians, greatly affecting your day-to-day life. I just thought that was really interesting. One other thing before we start talking about Trump's economy and tariffs. Yesterday, you may have missed this because there's so much breaking news during a Trump cycle. President Trump signed a bill yesterday to empower the Department of Veterans Affairs to help prevent the foreclosure of veterans' homes. The VA Home Loan Program Reform Act is now the law of the land after Trump signed it while flanked by its sponsor, Representative Derek Van Orden and Representative Mike Bost. Van Orden is a retired Navy SEAL with multiple combat tours, and Bost served in the Marine Corps from 1979 to 1982. The bill, quote, authorizes the VA to pay the holder of a loan guaranteed by the VA an amount necessary to avoid the foreclosure of the loan, provided that the holder of the loan and the veteran obligated on the loan execute documents to ensure the VA obtains a secured interest in the property covered by the loan. A little bit wonky there. The VA must prescribe loss mitigation procedures to help prevent the foreclosure of such a home loan. The VA may not take specified administrative actions, for example, consent to the modification of loan terms, until the sequence of mitigation options has been completed. Next, the bill establishes a 5-year partial claim program under which the VA may make a partial claim, purchase a portion of the indebtedness, on VA loans for primary residents that are in default or at imminent risk of default. Individuals who default on loans for which the VA has made a partial claim under the program must be liable to the VA for any loss resulting from the default. Ahead of the bill, Trump said over 60,000 American veterans are estimated to be at risk of losing their homes. Quote, but thanks to the bill, the Department of Veterans Affairs will be empowered to pay loan holders a necessary amount to prevent foreclosures on our veterans so our veterans won't be foreclosed and put onto the streets. It's very important, he added. That's the kind of numbers you're talking about. It's big stuff. The costs of this program are fully offset and will add nothing at all to the debt. Van Orden hailed Trump as being the most positive pro-veteran president in the history of this country. He backs up his words with deeds, and this is another example of how President Trump is taking care of our veterans. So, sir, I'm very thankful for you, for your leadership, and let's get this thing done and get our veterans into homes. I thought that was a nice story, one that you may have missed in the news cycle. When we come back, we're going to talk about that big trade deal that came out yesterday with South Korea. We're going to talk about the economic numbers, what the Fed's decided on the interest rates. We've got a lot to cover this morning. I know we're running late already. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Yes, this viewer writes in, if I was Trump, I'd fire the Fed guy for not helping the American economy. We're going to talk about the economy, but yes, they did not increase interest rates. But what was interesting, if you look at it, 2 people voted against. This is the first time it wasn't a consensus since 1993 is the way I'm trying to word it. The decision was met with opposition from Governors Michelle Bowman and Christopher Waller, both of whom have advocated for the Fed to start easing. That was the first time since late 1993 that multiple governors cast no votes on a rate decision. So it was 9-2 vote to keep the federal funds rate set in a range between 4.25 and 4.5%. Now, before we talk, I was going okay, we'll talk about let's talk about the tariffs first, and then that'll lead into the economy. President Trump announced yesterday evening that he had reached an agreement with South Korea that will include $350 billion in investment from Seoul and lock in a 15% tariff rate for the Asian nation. Saying, I'm pleased to announce that the United States of America has agreed to a full and complete trade deal with the Republic of Korea, Trump wrote on True Social. The deal is that South Korea will give to the United States $350 billion for investments owned and controlled by the United States and selected by myself as president. Additionally, South Korea will purchase $100 billion of LNG or other energy products. And further, South Korea has agreed to invest a large sum of money for their investment purposes. The full investment amount will be announced when South Korean President Lee Jae-myung visits the White House, which Trump said would happen within the next 2 weeks. South Korea will also be completely open to trade with the United States and accept American products, including cars and trucks, agriculture, etc. Now, Miranda Devine has a piece saying when President Trump nailed the biggest deal in history on Sunday with the European Union on trade, this is different, of course, than what we were just mentioning, but trade nonetheless, you could almost hear the sound of eggs splattering all over the faces of experts across the Atlantic. Economists, Democrats, and never-Trumpers have confidently predicted economic doom and gloom ever since the self-proclaimed tariff man declared Liberation Day. And you heard, what's his name? Larry Kramer? Saying how great the economy is, how great the tariffs have been. You even had Bill Maher admitting that, hey, this could come to an end, but as of right now, they have been successful. And I'm paraphrasing what he said. But trade war, recession, stagflation, skyrocketing inflation, stock market crash, you name it, they predicted Trump's tariffs would sink the economy. Trump was defying economic orthodoxy, so he just had to be wrong. But it turned out that the lofty group thinkers were the ones that were wrong. Not that most of them will admit it. He slapped a preliminary 10% tariff on imports of countries seeking to do business with the U.S. and called it a declaration of economic independence. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says $300 billion in revenue will flow in this year from tariffs, and Trump expects trillions more to come, which he will use to pay down the debt. And that's why we asked a question yesterday. Josh Hawley, for some reason, I don't quite understand it. Josh Hawley, who I do like, has made some interesting decisions lately. I'll put it that way. But he wanted a tariff rebate check, for lack of a better word, to take some of the money that we are earning from the tariffs and send it back to the American people in a check of about $600. But many people on this program texting in yesterday, but also I saw on the comments to the article saying, no, this is to pay down the debt. Let's pay down the debt. But I'll continue. He also teased the idea, this is Trump, that he would give Americans back some of their own money in the form of a check for $1,000 or $2,000, likely means tested, and with any luck spent in America to benefit the economy. So Trump is still teasing the idea. Josh Hawley pushing for it. I don't know. Your thoughts? I'm not opposed to getting a check. But at the same time, wasn't this all done in a manner to help pay down the debt? But that's on top of the $5 trillion or $6 trillion of direct investment in America that's been pledged by foreign countries and investors. Some in the president's inner sanctum call it reparations for years of the U.S. getting ripped off by friends and foes alike. Any way you want to look at it, Trump's revolutionary upending of the world trading system has been a win-win for America, says Miranda Devine. He has confidence in the might of America and isn't afraid to leverage it to our advantage. But even Ursula von der Leyen, the icy European Commission president who came to meet Trump at his majestic golf course on the west coast of Scotland, looked happy and relieved coming out of the grueling 90 minutes of a months-long negotiation Sunday. She even hugged various members of the U.S. trade delegation as she left, having agreed that Europe would accept 15% import tariffs on most goods, up from almost nothing previously, less than the 30% that Trump had threatened. Now, we went through all this last week. But Lutnick had said he had definitely set the table. Trump sealed the deal just before 7 p.m. Observers inside the meeting say the president has an uncanny knack of knowing exactly where the pain threshold of the prey is. Quote, you have a woman president who's very, very brilliant and very, very good, very talented at what she said, Trump said. We were all respectful, but she's very good at what she does, and her people are very good, and our people are very good. And when you think of it, we were getting nothing in the old days, meaning prior to this, we were getting nothing, and now we're getting a lot. It's going to be good for everybody, and I think it's going to pull a big part of the world together, too. After pulling off one-sided deals with Japan, the UK, Indonesia, and the Philippines that favor the U.S., the next big fish is China, says Trump. Bessent was in Stockholm over the weekend, grinding through continuing tough negotiations with the Middle Kingdom. A flock of South Korean trade negotiators descended on Turnberry late Sunday night to talk with Lutnick. But without going too much further into this, in the end, we are winning on this, and it's a part of a greater economic boom. As yesterday, we learned that the economy has bucked a recession, even though the doomsayers kept saying we'd be in a recession. All the naysayers, the anti-Trumpers, saying that the economy was all but over, the sky was falling. We're going to talk about that when we come back. I don't want to run too late. We have so much to cover this morning, and we have a great guest. Don Burlew is going to be joining us during the Steuben County Office for the Aging section of our program, where we do interviews. So she'll be joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. You won't want to miss that. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer. Sorry for the digression, but what is going on with the Chinese who own farms and other properties here in the U.S.? Seems to me I recall hearing that the government was going to buy them out. I don't remember if they're going to buy them out. There were politicians looking into it. I have not heard updates on that, to be honest. I know it was a part of the campaign, and even after the fact, there was a real concern when it comes to national security because they were buying farmland near military bases. And then soon after that, we learned that some of the solar panels that have been put up were containing ways for China to hack. There was a whole bunch right at one time, and it still continues to this day. We've seen story after story of hacking of weird, like municipal services, like all of a sudden the sewage plant is shut down, or these type of things. So I don't have updates for you on that, but I don't believe there are any updates. I believe we would have heard something by now. Maybe something still being looked into, and maybe something that kind of got pushed to the wayside, which would not be beneficial to America. But if I hear anything, you'll be the first to know. Comment from a different viewer. If Holly wants to help the American people financially, he should introduce legislation to cut taxes instead of trying to buy votes. Good point. I like Josh Hawley. I think he's very good when it comes to these congressional hearings. But there's been a couple things. There was that. He didn't want to do the Medicaid. The able-bodied American has to work to get their Medicaid benefits. I think that was the one. Don't quote me on that, but that he was against in the big, beautiful bill. So just been a couple things. That's not to knock him completely, because you can't outweigh the good that he's done as well. But I don't know. I think there's a segment of the population, maybe a very large segment of the population, that would love to get the tariff rebate check. And it would signal a message to people that may not be paying attention that the tariffs did indeed work and the economy is indeed doing well, no matter what they're hearing on the nightly news. So there is that PR aspect to it. But overall, I think most of our thought from the beginning was that it was for kind of debt relief. Okay, recession. What recession? Asked Taylor Herzlich. The U.S. economy bucked nonstop doom and gloom economists, including some at Wall Street's biggest banks, and reported stronger than expected growth in the second quarter. What is that coming from? Oh, that's funny. I didn't think about that. Something I said in there got my Google phone going. Okay, talking back to it. That's a little eerie. So, where was I? The stronger than expected growth in the second quarter, marked by a surge in hiring and wages. This is very interesting because this is what happened in Trump's first term. It's like history repeats itself, that we were told how bad the economy was going to do. Many thought on election night, when I say many, I mean those in the media. Remember, they were reporting election night in 2016. It with the stocks overseas and these type of things, it's the end of the economy that night. That in November of 2016, it was the end of the world essentially as we knew it. Remember? But I'll continue. Gross domestic product, the value of all goods and services produced across the U.S. economy, jumped by a seasonally and inflation-adjusted 3% in the second quarter, according to the Commerce Department. That rebounded from a 0.5% decline in the first quarter and beat estimates of just 2.3% growth. A recession is usually defined by the GDP slipping in 2 consecutive quarters. Meanwhile, private employers added 104,000 jobs last month, according to the ADP National Employment Report released on Wednesday. That reversed a 23,000 drop in June and exceeded the forecast for an increase of 64,000. Annual wage spiked 4.4%, well above the rate of inflation, which has remained below 3%, despite harping that Trump's tariffs would jack up prices. Neela Richardson, ADP's chief economist, said our hiring and pay data are broadly indicative of a healthy economy. Employers have grown more optimistic that consumers, the backbone of the economy, will remain resilient. That resilience upended dire predictions for a recession by many left-leaning politicians and even big banks like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan. The Wall Street giants had hiked the risk level for a recession to 65% and 60%, respectively, in April following Liberation Day. One JP Morgan dashboard of market-based recession indicators put the likelihood at nearly 90%, likely 80%. Now, I don't want to go through all the people that called. We could be here all day that we're going to call for the end of essentially the economy because of Trump. Huh. It's just saying something in the background. Interesting. Sorry, I don't mean to keep you interested. You don't see people walking around in white bathrobes that often. Okay. The GDP surged without any help from the government as federal outlays declined 3.7%, coming off a steep 4.6% drop in the first quarter. It would not have been fair to show you, though I could have, but that's... Anyway, Trump cheered the strong GDP data in a post on Truth Social before once again calling on the Federal Reserve to slash interest rates, no inflation, let people buy and refinance their home. Fed policymakers, however, resisted pressure from the White House, leaving rates unchanged after the two-day meeting ended Wednesday. When combined with data from the first quarter, Wednesday's GDP report showed an economy in the first half of the year that is growing, albeit slowly at an annual rate of 1.2%, below last year's 2.5%. Demand from businesses and consumers, also called final sales to private domestic purchasers, rose at 1.2% rate in the quarter. I know numbers get wonky, but what is being said by the Post editorial board, and I think it's a good point, so much for the prophecies of Trump-onomics doom. Not only did the U.S. economy grow at a 3% rate in the second quarter, the growth was all in the private sector as the government portions shrank, which comes natural after Doge and the like. Meanwhile, ADP, as I mentioned, said that employment rose by 104,000 jobs. That is growth was half again the consensus forecast for April-June, while July looks like a huge boon for American workers. All as many of President Trump's policies have only begun to kick in. You've got to remember, he's only been there 6 months. Trump's tariffs have neither crashed the economy nor kicked off fresh inflation. Though, of course, those predictions largely came from experts who never expected the bane of Bidenflation, who never even put the blame on Bidenflation. They would remember right up till the end, say there's no such thing as inflation. Right now, the economy's doing great. Look at page 347 in this bureaucratic manual. Remember, people they were doing man-on-the-street interviews, lecturing people, talking about how they couldn't put groceries on their table, and they were lecturing them. Remember, I want to say it was Don Lemon, but it may have been somebody else, saying, what, you can afford a boat to take your family fishing, but you can't afford groceries on the table, as to say, you shouldn't have any type of luxury in your life. You should just keep working, pay your taxes, and struggle to get by, but never once bring up Biden inflation. So the president's push for more and cheaper energy will be another huge anti-inflationary spur to growth and added reason for optimism among consumers and producers. Trump's first term was a huge win for working Americans up until COVID escaped from the Wuhan lab. Now the second term is shaping up even better for everyone except the professional doomsdayers. Even an anti-Trump New York Times columnist had to admit as much. Longtime critic of Trump, New York Times columnist Bret Stephens, admitted that the Trump administration is having more success than he expected. In a column published Tuesday, he marveled at Trump's recent slew of successes, saying that the president's term has had a better turn since the first 100 days in office. Egads, he said, after a disastrous first 100 days, Donald Trump is starting to have a much more successful presidency. This is not what we, let me try it again. This is not what we, his foam-at-the-mouth critics, had planned or perhaps secretly hoped for. So admitting there, the New York Times columnist admitting there that he had secretly hoped for things to go wrong for Trump, meaning things go wrong for America and the American people. It's as simple as that, because if the president isn't successful, the country isn't successful, and the people aren't successful. Stephens, who describes himself as a never-Trump conservative, listed Trump's accomplishments and pointed out whether he's achieved them I'm so tongue-tied this morning. Achieved them through good policy or sheer luck. Among Trump's positive policies, the columnist pointed to Trump getting NATO countries on board with increased defense spending. Far from destroying the Atlantic alliance, as his critics feared, Trump may wind up being remembered for reviving and rebalancing it to the advantage of both sides. He even praised Trump for courageous policy, specifically the bombing of Iran's nuclear facilities, saying joining Israel in its strike on Iran, which Trump carried out in the teeth of political resistance from parts of his own base, did not lead us into a Middle East war, though Tehran may yet seek retaliation. Instead, it helped bring the war between Israel and Iran to a swift end. The columnist went on to encourage Trump's adapted policy on the Russia-Ukraine war, stating speeding the delivery of arms to Ukraine after Trump's disastrous initial pressure campaign on Ukraine backfired by emboldening Putin is the only way to end the war. He also praised Trump's immigration policy, though he noted it's good policy that's gone too far in terms of its enforcement. Additionally, he expressed some relief that trade deals Trump recently secured with the EU and Japan did not lead to worse outcomes than they did. And he had to make sure, you have to still take your digs, right, that there are many unbeautiful parts to his $3.3 trillion spending package, but admitted it was a needed political victory for the president. He also noted that the shakedown of Columbia University for anti-Semitism on campus, while not the way to go about it, did yield results. I love that. It's not the way to go about it. It's not, come on. These never-Trumpers have always been very great at knowing what Trump should do. Bill Kristol is the finest example of that. He was wrong on Trump so many times. It's embarrassing to read his old tweets. And yet, he's still out there being interviewed on I think maybe PBS or maybe on MSNBC. Stevens, who wrote last year that he no longer considers himself never Trump because the movement was too dogmatic, he said Trump's recent successes were a valuable lesson to his critics. Quote, if Trump's opponents want somebody to be effective, and let's face it, we haven't been, then we have to come to grips with realities that have so far eluded us, such as not everything Trump does is bad. All right, we got other stories to talk about. We got a lot of comments coming in, too. Keep them coming in. And we'll be right back. Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox will be right back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's go to viewer comments. Brought to you by Steuben Senior Services Fund. Mark writes in, it doesn't surprise me Trump is getting what he wants. He is a great businessman. I'll put 30% tariffs on a country, then drop it to 15%, and they'll go for it. I'm going to go back to that because I want to finish what Mark had to say. And the latest college to comply with Trump is Brown University. Thank you, Mark. You're right. Isn't that what they call the art of the deal? I mean, it's right in his book. That's why I think we were joking about with Joe Sempolinski. I mean, there is a book out there that these countries could read to see what Trump is about to do. He did telegraph his punches. But it's why I joke that it's what the school boards always do. Now, bear with me. That's why I said I want to talk about it. It's the idea of they come to you as a voter and say, boy, we really got to increase the school budget this year. And I'm just going to make up a number, right? So we need $100 million more this year. And voters get outraged. And they say, no way, no way. You've had enough. And what happens? You vote it down. And then they'll say, okay, we really, really tightened our belt here. We really tightened our belt. It's only 80 million, which is probably the number they wanted in the first place. The rest was just gravy. And people say, oh, only 80 million. Thank you. Finally, you've listened. And then it always passes. So it can be frustrating to watch in real time. But yes, it is kind of the quote unquote art of the deal, right? All right, comment from a different viewer. Regarding your Google phone listening to you, I don't think the iPhone does this, which is why I use an iPhone and have absolutely nothing to do with anything Google if I can help it. I understand that. I understand the Google sentiment. I will say I don't think I agree with you that iPhone doesn't do it. Sadly, I think everything does it at all times now. So maybe that's just me being paranoid. I don't know. I'll let you, if you believe that, I believe you, but I have a feeling that they all listen to us one way or another. That was just one of those weird setups where I tried to make sure it wasn't set up to where if you say a certain word, it will kick off, but apparently, who knows? Yeah, I don't like Google either, but what are you going to do? It's what I started off with a smartphone, and I didn't want to learn anything different. Okay, but thank you for your comment. I do appreciate it. FBI's Chief Kash Patel saying yesterday, and I'm sure you've heard this by now, that he found burn bags of Trump-Russia documents in a secret room filled with thousands of documents dating back to the Bureau's Trump-Russia probe during the 2016 campaign. One of the documents discovered in a purported secret room at the FBI's D.C. headquarters is a classified annex to the 2023 report by then Special Counsel John Durham that scrutinized the original probe, codenamed Crossfire Hurricane. The 29-page appendix to the Durham report, which had never been publicly released, includes details of the intelligence he reviewed, which first reported on, Fox News said, which first reported on the discovery. In official parlance, burn bags refers to containers that hold classified documents that are meant to be destroyed after a certain period of time. It was not immediately clear whether the documents found by Patel had yet to reach their destroy date or preserved due to an oversight by an official. Well, it would be ironic if it was an oversight by an official, showing again the ineptitude of bureaucracy. The annex will be declassified and turned over to the Senate Judiciary Chair Chuck Grassley for eventual public release. Grassley's office didn't immediately respond to an inquiry. Fox News Digital reported that the annex includes information that foreign sources warned members of the U.S. intelligence community that the FBI would help spread a narrative that the 2016 Trump campaign illegally colluded with the Kremlin to win the election before the Bureau launched Crossfire Hurricane in July of 2016. Those involved with examining the papers include Patel, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and Acting National Security Agency Director William Hartman. Quote, I want everything to be shown, Trump said. As long as it's fair and reasonable, I think it should be shown. This will be interesting to watch as this unfolds. That broke yesterday. We're covering all the breaking stories. Oh my goodness, I got to take another break. We'll read your comments when we come back. Then we're going to wrap up hour number 1. Don't forget, hour number 2, we're going to talk with Don Burlew, the president of Watkins, Glen International. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, wrapping up hour number 1, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I have some great comments that are coming in, but I'm going to save them to the top of the hour. That's how late I ran in this hour. So thank you. Keep those comments coming in. If you want to be a part of the top of hour number 2, get your comments in right now, because I want to end this hour and get your opinion to kick off the next hour. In the next hour, we're going to talk about New York State issues at the beginning and read your comments. 2 pieces I think you'll find interesting. Actually, just one, because I'm completely out of time. Brendan O'Neill says, forget Canada. Trump should make the United Kingdom the 51st state. This is coming from someone in Britain. He's the chief political writer for the British online magazine Spiked. Trump Turnberry could be your seat of power, from which you can continue spilling truths to Great Britons and start turning us back from our self-destruction. So your thoughts, never mind Canada, never mind Greenland. Trump should focus on the UK and make the UK the 51st state. That would be an interesting bookend in history, wouldn't it? Now I'm late. Your opinion on that and anything else you want to talk about when we come back. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking. It's hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I am your host, Frank Hakem, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm so glad that you've joined us. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we're going to be talking with Don Burlew, the president of Watkins Glen International. We're going to find out all about next weekend, race weekend at the Glen. Are you going? I'll pose that question. I know many of you have tradition. One thing that's really neat, I like this time of year because people from out of town who may be staying locally will sometimes be walking Market Street, as tourists are wont to do, and they'll see me in the window and knock on the door and say hi and say they caught me in the morning. I always think that's pretty neat. It's happened both. No, this would be the second year. Yeah, third year. No, second year. Sorry. All right, distracting morning. Whatever. Let's go to viewer comments. Viewer comments of our program, the section of our program brought to you by Steuben Senior Services Fund, empowering seniors to stay at home. I'm going to talk about them in just a second. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Help me understand why some members of Congress clearly want our republic to collapse, and they're openly making their thoughts known instead of cheering the economy, for example. They can't celebrate it rather than amp up their tired rhetoric that really hasn't worked in the past. Yeah, it's all they have. I mean, the whole idea that Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, over, to scare the elderly because they know older Americans statistically are more likely to vote. I agree with you. The columnist from the New York Times admitting that they all secretly wanted Trump to do bad, meaning the economy do bad, meaning you, the American people, do bad, all for some political grudge. Why are certain members of Congress? I mean, look at it with Tom Suozzi, Representative Tom Suozzi, saying that he supported 75% of the big, beautiful bill, but couldn't vote for it, for that 25%. That was too far for him. Was that too far, or is it because your party told you aren't going to vote for it? Because unlike Republicans, Democrats are very good at playing together and making sure that they get their message across, we'll put it that way to be polite, that they'll fight everything, every piece of Trump legislation, no matter how good for the country, they'll fight it tooth and nail. Look at the gentleman that was finally sworn in for ceremonial, I'm not going to remember his exact term, but for the VA, and he was in charge of funerals, things like that. There were actually Democrats that voted against him, disrupting the most important maybe job of the VA, which is making sure that our veterans get a dignified, respectful burial. I mean, it goes to show there's no end. If it's got Trump's name on it, they're going to vote no. Comment from from the same viewer. I want to give credit here. The same viewer says, by the way, I want to thank Karen for another gem. Yes, thank you, Karen. I hope we thanked you yesterday. Karen has been kind enough to send us a quote of the week from Karen because she wants to make the name Karen great again, and I love that. She's had great quotes so far, and it's become one of the many treats, frankly speaking, that we look forward to, just like Climate Fact Friday with Bob and so many great comments from viewers. So thank you. We all thank you, Karen, for that. Comment from Mark. He says, saw a healthcare briefing with Trump, Oz, and Kennedy. The healthcare system is going all in on AI. And I've heard that from others in the past, that there are some real benefits. It's going to be scary at first. I mean, to those of us like myself, and if you remember, Sheriff Allard joked about it, how AI works, and we're not ready for it. I mean, meaning that, that's so far leaps and bounds of anything technological that I'm aware of, or I guess maybe not aware is not the right word, but the practical applications of it. So yes, I also like, Mark, that originally it said Trump, Ozzy, and Kennedy. Ozzy's funeral was yesterday, and it really threw me for a loop, so thank you for sending that back. But yes, his funeral was yesterday. It seemed like a very touching ceremony, so I think you have Ozzy on the mind. I understand. Comment from a different viewer. I have an iPhone, and I'm afraid to say that, in my opinion, they're all listening in. I've had a couple instances where I actually heard this call is being recorded while talking to my sister one day. She heard it on her end and asked me what was that, and I couldn't explain it myself. That's a little scary, isn't it? The other thing that opened my eyes, I was put up north in a fishing boat a few years ago and took a beautiful picture of a sunset. And immediately a message appeared asking, do you want this picture naming the resort where I stayed, posted on Facebook? I was stunned. I was maybe an eighth mile from that place. So that was my first really unnerving experience, and maybe that makes me paranoid. It's not paranoid. Listen, thank you for that. I will say that there are so many eerie instances that when it first started happening, you and your friends, and you would talk about it, you're never going to believe what happened. Now it's become so commonplace that we're kind of used to it. So I get it. It is a little bit, it's unnerving, but the way that it can be used for good, but used for bad as well. Ken writes in, are iPhones listening? All I know is that both me and my wife have iPhones, and since I purchased both phones, the base operating system of both phones are linked by my email address. I'm not on social media at all, and my wife is on so many social media accounts that I can't count high enough to see how many. When I'm talking about products or topics with someone, and I'm not near my wife, or when my wife and I are talking about products or topics when we are together, her phone starts giving her ads or advice on social media related to the products or topics being discussed. You're exactly right, Ken. That's what we're talking about with the eeriness. I remember one that really got my attention, and this would have been 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, where I had looked to go on vacation to Las Vegas, and I searched on one computer at work, just some little tidbit. Next thing you know, it was on my phone, my personal computer at work, nonstop ads for Las Vegas, nonstop. And that's when it first hit me that everything's connected. So if you're at work and you check something, doesn't mean it's not going to be at your phone at the end of the day. But if you have an email up, it gets really, and you add social media to that, Ken, yeah, we're talking a whole different ballgame. So I agree with you. I think all phones are listening to you. I think depending on what smart technology you use in your home, some people have smart TVs, they have smart refrigerators, these type of things. I think they're listening to you too. And obviously if you have one of the products that you yell their name and ask them for help, they're listening. But yes, I don't want to say their names because I know sometimes that triggers them on the other side of the TV screen. But having said that, yes, I call it 1984, whatever you want, call me paranoid. I believe everything is listening to us. It just better be realistic, I think. Hey, since we mentioned Steuben Senior Services Funds, our good friends at Steuben Senior Services Fund, who bring us a section of the program where we read viewer comments, and thank you so much for the viewer comments. We received an update, and I know Mark went, and he said he had a blast at the Bubbly and Brunch. Well, I received an update from Steuben County about the success of Bubbly and Brunch, and I thought you may want to know because we gave away a couple tickets, and we talked with our great guests from Steuben Senior Services Fund about the fundraiser. It was a successful Sunday at the historic Pleasant Valley Winery Visitor Center in Hammondsport. It brought together supporters from across the region in celebration of a vital cause, helping Steuben County older adults age and play safely and securely in their own homes. They had a delicious brunch and both an online and in-person auction featuring a variety of local goods and services. The event drew more than 140 attendees. That's great, showcasing a strong commitment to senior care. Our good friend, Linda Teeter, the executive director, said the program is about empowering our seniors to live independently with dignity and the support they need. We're incredibly thankful for the outpouring of generosity from our community and volunteers. Proceeds from the event will directly support initiatives designed to assist older adults in Steuben County with essential services that promote safety, independence, and quality of life. So there you go. Just an update. I know you were curious. All right, we asked earlier, there's that piece by someone that lives in the United Kingdom saying, never mind, Trump, give up on Canada, give up on Greenland, focus on the UK. We want the UK to be the 51st state. Now, another update to a story from, you may say, gets pushed to the wayside during some of the media cycle. According to Charles Gasparino, the Washington Commanders owners are actually thinking hard about Trump demanding they restore the Redskins name. Because Trump has made the threat that the deal for a new stadium would be in jeopardy. While insiders close to the private equity titans Josh Harris and David Blitzer, who in addition to the Commanders own the 76ers and the NHL's New Jersey Devils through their holding company. The buyout billionaires are facing heat to bring back the Redskins name and its famed feather logo too, after the commander-in-chief has repeatedly ripped the new nomenclature, as he calls it, the Washington whatevers. I may put a restriction on them that if they don't change the name back to the original Washington Redskins and get rid of the ridiculous moniker Washington Commanders, I won't make a deal with them to build a stadium in Washington. Just an update that they're seriously considering it. Your thoughts on that? All right, let's talk about New York issues, and we're going to go through them fast. By the way, we brought to you the story that hundreds of pot stores, marijuana stores, are in jeopardy, even though they followed all the rules that the Office of Cannabis Management laid out before them. But it turns out the Office of Cannabis Management, that bureaucratic institution, they screwed up. So now all the money that they dumped into their place and to get their product, whatever you think about the legalization of marijuana, we got to put that aside on this because many of us are against it. You got to put that aside. That's all. It is the law of the land of New York. But this shows you the bureaucracy and just the buffoonish way they've handled it from the beginning at the Office of Cannabis Management. They actually waited a month, at least a month, to notify the people with the cannabis licenses that their licenses were in jeopardy. So not even giving them more time to get prepared for if Albany doesn't decide to change the rule before their license runs up, all that money they dumped into a storefront. You look at some of these, we're talking about the legal ones here. You look at some of them, they're very fancy, at least from the outside. That all that money down the wayside because of not, this is just like the Climate Change Superfund, not because of their fault. They followed all the rules. It was because of inept Albany screwing up. And who loses at the end of the day? Well, in typical New York fashion, the business owners end up losing at the end of the day. Also, we're going to move quickly. bear with us, because coming up next, we're going to be talking with Don Burlew. Actually, let me take a break because I want to talk to her after one more segment because I want to read some more of your comments. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back. Broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. Let's get right back to New York State issues. Judge ruled in favor of the all-electric New York law. A United States District Court judge ruled last week that New York can move forward with its law requiring most new buildings 7 stories or shorter to be built using zero emissions heat and appliances. The change has some in the Southern Tier worried. The Southern Tier Home Builder and Remodeler Association president, Donna Cinco, said, "We're afraid it's going to discourage some building in our community. Here, we don't get a great deal of building, so we worry about this discouraging people and making that step to build a new home in the community." It was they were a part of a lawsuit that was denied by the judge. Part of its concern center on gaps in the law that could hurt local builders and raise prices for those looking to buy a home. Also, kind of twofold on the energy issue, New York State Electric and Gas is responding to a motion filed with the Public Service Commission meant to force the utility company to hold public meetings about proposed rate hikes. NYSEG says it shares people's concerns about affordability, and the proposed increase is meant to help make long-term upgrades to the power grid. Keep in mind, the costs are coming from Albany. I'm not saying NYSEG is perfect in this. Don't get me wrong, but it's the laws put on the books, and we've talked about this so often with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. It's the laws put on the books by Kathy Hochul in this green energy push that is causing this huge increase. They said right now they're looking for a rate hike of up to 33.5%. Binghamton area Representative Josh Riley said if NYSEG and its multi-international owners want to hike rates on upstate families, then they can show up, look us in the eye, and answer for it. These hearings are about making sure working people get a say before Wall Street gets another payday. 33.5%, folks, because of our green energy push. And now that judge has upheld, is that the word you do, rules in favor of an all-electric New York law. The law's website said it will not force any current buildings to switch from gas or require electric replacements for broken appliances, has exemptions for certain industries like restaurants and hospitals, and will not be fully implemented until 2029. Well, I think we can all agree 2029 will be here in a blink of an eye. That's how things work. Oh, and we've been talking, I even hate to bring this up, but we've talked about these activist judges, and we've talked about the bail reform and the disaster for New York State. Listen to this. This is out of Delhi, New York. A Hobart man, 44-year-old Brent Trimble, has been arrested again following an ongoing child sex abuse investigation. Trimble was initially arrested on June 17th and charged with multiple felonies, including first-degree rape and aggravated sexual abuse, as well as endangering the welfare of a child. I don't even want to mention these things, folks, but there's a reason for this. So he's been arrested again with multiple felony charges, those despicable, disgusting crimes, allegedly, he is guilty of. Allegedly, because he has to go through the trial. But investigators from the Delaware County Sheriff's Office revealed that Trimble reportedly sent at least 6, we'll say videos, I don't want to get too graphic, a lot of these issues, right? On July 23rd, 2025, Trimble was arrested again at the Delaware County Correctional Facility following his release on bond and charged with 6 additional counts of disseminating indecent material to a minor, all Class D felonies. Now, why do I bring this up? Not a story we normally bring up. Trimble was arraigned at the Delaware County CAP Court before Town of Walton Justice Michael Ripa. Despite the Delaware County District Attorney's Office request of a bail of $100,000 cash or $200,000 secured property bond, Justice Ripa set the bail at $1. The public defender's office posted the bail and Trimble was released from custody. Sheriff Dumond said, based on the reprehensible and disgusting details of this case, it's impossible to logically determine why the defendant was released on $1 bail. This shocks the conscience and is a disgrace concerning the protection and well-being of the defenseless victims of these crimes and innocent children. Now, the investigation remains open, and the Delaware County Sheriff's Office encourages anyone with information to report on Trimble. Wow. What is it with these judges? I'm telling you. One last New York State. Oh, two things. I know I'm jumping around on New York State. I apologize. They were talking about New York public media. NPR, PBS could lose at least $57 million from the big, beautiful bill. Now, New York Republicans have been demanding for years that tax dollars should not be going to this organization, this public broadcasting that completely pushes far left narratives. And just to kind of prove this point, I'm not going to mention the station because I'm not trying to call out any station in general. But we'll just say that it was the president and CEO of not a NPR, a PBS station, in New York State. Not going to name which one. And they said it's definitely going to impact them expanding, and it's going to keep their newsroom at the number that it's at, not receiving these funds. And then this is a quote that I think perfectly exemplifies why I'm not losing sleep over the cuts in taxpayer money going to NPR and PBS. Quote, as a result of the cuts, they decided not to fill a climate change reporter role. So because of the cuts made from the big, beautiful bill, they're not going to hire on a climate change reporter. I think that speaks for itself. Why that was a great decision. Oh, that wasn't a big, beautiful bill. That was the rescission package. Excuse me. Why the rescission package was such a positive step. Finally, for New York State issues, and then we're going to talk with Don Burlew when we come back. Elise Stefanik, in a fundraising letter sent to Republican voters from outside of her congressional district, she theorizes that Governor Hochul, quote, is potentially teeing up a 2028 presidential run. We've said that on this program before. Some of the rhetoric that she uses, it makes it seem like she's really desperate for that. The letter includes references to Stefanik seeking re-election to the U.S. House of Representatives, writing, I'm one of Kathy Hochul's biggest threats because she knows I can rally New Yorkers and provide a critical check on her power grab from Washington. The letter was paid for by Elise for Congress and not paid for at taxpayer expenses. Now, I don't need to go through all that, but do you agree with Stefanik that there is, and as we know, Stefanik may run for governor. Looks like she's not going to decide until November. And that letter seems very much like a fundraising campaign for governor, but that's neither here nor there. But Hochul potentially running for president. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, Don Burlew will be joining us, so don't go anywhere. This is, Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Akam, and we are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and this is the Steuben County office for the aging section of our program where we do interviews. Don, welcome back.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, this is your busy season. Thanks for taking time out.
Absolutely.
Isn't it always your busy season?
From April to October, it really is our busy season.
So before we get into kind of the nitty gritty, tell us about the Bills training camp. How much fun?
Oh my gosh, it was super fun. You know, Zane is a Bills fan, so that made it even better because he was right. We got down on the field and watched them do their practicing for a couple different times, and we were able to do some stuff with their youth camp and then their community programming. So it was just a great day. I mean, it's super. You know, you watch them on TV, then you see them live. Yeah, it's just as intimidating when you see them in live because they're huge.
You look up at them like that just to talk to them. It is amazing. It's like they're like giants, but it looked like you guys had a really good fun time.
We did, and you know, the collaboration, and that's what we're trying to do is collaborate with the Bills fans to say, look, we're just a couple hours away, and there's a lot of synergy in our fan base. Oh, absolutely. I mean, they definitely share a fan base, right? Right. So this is your second year. Is it old hat by now? I don't know if I'd call it old hat. I feel like we had a great year last year, and then you know, when you put this year on top of it, we really started planning before the checkered flag went down last year, and then we have continued to do that. And this next 10 days or 8 days now, I guess. We're just laying out that plan. So as I said, Monday morning it's time to roll, folks.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And when you learned so much last year, your first year, was it interesting to see? Was it different than you thought it would be? Was it the same? What did you expect, I guess?
I think the only surprises were how many nimble decisions, as I say, you have to make.
Yeah.
Things that you would not even expect to come up as a, hey, this just happened. What are we going to do with it? Like, oh, okay, well, we can make that decision.
What's the worst that could happen,
That's
right?
right. So I think we probably made more of those decisions than I had anticipated, but the team was well prepared, and they had me well prepared to make the decision, so we didn't really have any bumps that we couldn't deal with.
Well, and all the festivity starts next Thursday, right? We're going to talk about some of that.
It does.
But I would ask you how the planning's going, but it's too late now, right? It's got to be done, or you're...
Yeah, we're doing last minute planning. I say planning. We're rolling out our plan now, and the things that we're doing now is we're just doing some additional additional programming that we now have said, okay, we've got a little time freed up here. The schedule is changing a little, so we're able to do a few more things that we didn't necessarily have in play first time.
Well, and do you like it this year? Because this is kind of interesting for you. Last year when you started, it moved because of the playoffs.
It did.
And it was a whole different ball game. It felt different even in the community. And I'm not saying better or worse. It just felt different, especially this time of year and when it was actually in September. So, right? I think September. So what are you looking forward to this being your first year as president, doing it in what we would say the normal time?
I am, because, last year was great. We were in the playoffs. First time we were in the playoffs. September did give us a different vibe. Our fans were there.
Yeah.
But it's always been this weekend in August.
I know.
And so, it goes back to tradition.
It does.
And people came in September, and they still had our tradition, but there's something to say when you go back to the original weekend and things like that. So we're doing a few special things this year to add to our schedule for our fans and our campers, which I think will be nice, and they'll appreciate that. So.
And the thing about last year, which was interesting, you think of like the college students and things that normally attend, that threw everything kind of in a loop. So I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to be glad to return this year.
I think there is. So it impacted us with our college students at summer help.
Yeah.
Our interns were all like, see ya, we got to go. So we're excited this year that our interns have been a part of the planning last year, and then they get to see it unfold this year, as well as our summer help that really wants to be with us all year long can be there for the big event.
And one thing, and we had mentioned at the beginning of the interview, the Bills training camp, and something I don't want to glance over before we move on to get into what is happening next week, but tell us about this kind of driver appreciation initiative that you have going on.
So NASCAR came out with this program, and it's an incentive for the drivers to really get out into the community where the tracks are located. So we have really taken advantage of it this year. So we started out with Ross Chastain at the Corning Museum of Glass, which with our Winning Wednesday turned out to be a wonderful event. Ross got down with the kids for the Corning youth program. That turned out really well. Then we followed up the next week with John Hunter Nemechek. We did a tour. We went to Syracuse and Rochester. There again, just getting him out to see so people can get autographs and touch them, so to speak. Then we followed up last week. We had an amazing program at the New York State Sheriff's Camp up on Keuka Lake, and an event at Bully Hill with two different, Brad Kozlowski and Ryan Priest. And again, we were trying to appeal to our youth and our camp all across the state, but then also to our wine industry and our agriculture, and what do we bring, what is the Finger Lakes?
All about,
what are we part of in Watkins Glen? So that's why we did it that way. And then the Bills event we did yesterday was simply to collaborate with the Bills because of our fan base, and I will tell you, it was an amazing, fun day. So that was great. And then next week, we're tapping back into Ross Chastain for Buckle Up, Save Your Melon event downtown Watkins Glen, right in front of the courthouse. On Thursday morning, I think it's 9 to 1, and then in the afternoon, it should be announced today, we're going to do an event at Finger Lakes Distilling with John Hunter Nemechek. In the afternoon, we're going to do a tour and autograph session and VIP section, and then it's open to the public, so no charge. There again, just wanted to give people time to so they get to know the drivers.
Sounds like these guys are campaigning. They're running for something, doesn't it?
The interesting thing they all have said that when they've come is they really enjoy getting out and being with the fans and getting back out and being able to talk to the kids and people that really that are NASCAR fans.
Well, isn't that what's so special about NASCAR? Because of the connection that the fans have with the drivers and vice versa.
Right. And that's what we wanted to do. So that's what we've spent the entire past 6-8 weeks doing is laying out this program that has been super successful. to get them back into our community.
Yeah. So this year, and I think this is new, correct me if I'm wrong, Thursday night there is going to be a camper party.
There is.
What's the camper party going to look like?
It's like a big tailgate party.
Yeah, okay. That's what they need. You need more tailgate parties.
I know. Well, come on. We're at the track. What
Exactly.
else can we, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to do a tailgate party on Thursday night. We have Ken Country coming in on Thursday night, which I think will be pretty cool for us. And there on Friday, we do some practicing, and then we'd have the Arca Menard Series on Friday. That race is happening. Then we have our NASCAR Truck Series happening on Friday, and they haven't been back since 2001, so this will be a highlight of the weekend as well. We also have a concert on Friday night, which is Jared Stack, right?
Yep.
Jared Stout?
Yeah.
Jared Stout. And so that'll be interesting and fun. And then on Saturday, we have our Xfinity race. We also have HSR coming back to race. And then we have Tim Duggar coming in, which is a NASCAR favorite. And we'll end the evening with fireworks.
And wow, there's a lot to do next weekend, that's for sure. Starting on Thursday, not even really the weekend. One thing I did want to mention, I know we brought this up last year, but I think this is such a great initiative. If people are still thinking about buying tickets, there's available kind of a special bonus, I guess you would call it, ticket for military, educators, first responders, and healthcare workers.
There is.
Just a thank you, kind of.
It's a thank you. It's an appreciation, It's been a long few years that we've all been through, and I think we're finally over the hump. But at the end of the day, we have to realize that we can't survive without them. Yeah. And at the track, they're super important to us. So we do. We have other specials out right now. So I'd encourage folks to visit the Glen.com if there's any tickets, and there are tickets. But if there's any specials that they qualify for, our team will be asking them and get them in. And there's some camping left.
Is it really?
We have 4,100 campsites, so
so
that's a lot of campsites.
That's a lot. Wow, that is going to be a heck of a party then on Thursday.
It is. Big camping party.
You know what I read this morning, and I thought this was really neat, just because I know we have a lot of people that watch this show that are big Syracuse University fans. And SU football is teaming up this year with number 44 Chevrolet, which is driven by J.J. Yealy, I think is how you pronounce it. And how appropriate to all the SU fans. I think this is so cool, because 44, of course, is Ernie Davis's numbers. It's Jim Brown's, Floyd Little. So I can't wait to see that. I'm not rooting for anybody specifically. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
Just to see the car. Yeah. I mean, if you're from, as I say, Elmira, Horseheads, like Ernie Davis is such an icon to. 100%. He's an icon in himself, but being a local, I think he's more of an icon to us. So I think it'll be pretty cool. I think our SU fans are going to love it, but I think it's just a great addition to the lineup of cars.
And it ties in, you're talking so much really about community at the end of the day, the places that the drivers have visited locally. This is another way to tie it all back into the community with Syracuse University football.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful.
We're excited about it.
You have a lot of stuff going on. This is very busy.
The NASCAR races on Sunday, we've got an expanded fan zone that is really cool, a new, updated kids zone. So there is something for everybody.
Yeah, and the kids, I love the fact that you've made it so family friendly and made it about families, bringing everybody together and having just a good time.
Yeah, and on Friday we are also hosting 150 kids from Elmira City School District for our Speediatrics event. And they will have taken part in an event for a week at the school. One of my team members started it out on Monday for a day with them, and then they go through programming all next week, and then they end up on Friday and they spend half a day with us. And at the end, they will all be awarded a pair of sneakers to start school with.
Oh, that's so great.
So it'll be a cool day.
There's so many cool events surrounding the race weekend. So what does your week look like next week?
Crazy.
Yeah, just from beginning to end.
So I say crazy, but it's a fun crazy.
Yeah.
So we start out on Monday, and Tuesday is the first 2 days where we do not have cars on track, because we actually have cars on track right now. Okay. So Monday morning we go cold and we finish our prepping and painting that we need to get done. And lots of interviews and drivers and owners coming in, and a lot of last minute things that you just really have to wait till
the last second.
Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we roll out our program.
Wow. And then what does your Monday look like when it's all over?
Believe it or not,
back to work.
Everybody will be in on Monday morning, and everybody will be talking about this went great. Something they'd like to change for next year. Yeah. Or we got a new set of cars coming in.
Yeah, isn't that wild? What do you look forward to during the whole week? 'Cause if you have a second to even take a breather, is there something that you look forward to the most?
I will tell you, I like to go to the media center early in the morning, and you can look out over the campground, and the track may still be quiet depending on how early I get there. Yeah. and you can smell the campfires still burning from the night before, and kids are riding bikes out and about, and that's pretty cool to sit there and say, my gosh, this is in our own backyard.
Yeah.
This is what we've taken the last year to develop.
And it's also the calm before the storm. that one second to breathe. So what should people know, just before we go, what should people know? I'm sure most people watching this have either went in the past or are planning, got everything all set, but what should they know in preparation?
Something really cool this year that they didn't have before is we have a dandy on site. So any last minute things they can get at our dandy on site. It's it's past the West Tunnel. They have their own building. They have their own dandy setup, which is pretty cool for our fans and our campers. One thing is, please make sure that they download their tickets and download the NASCAR.com app. Which they can get it from the App Store for free, because that will have last minute updated, everything will be on that
Great
app
idea.
And that'll be easy for people. We put another cell tower up, so our cell service should continue to get better. So I think that's probably the big thing.
And just out of curiosity, for someone that thinks about stuff like this, is it only digital tickets now? Or are there sometimes paper tickets?
There's
I'm just out of curiosity.
Sometimes paper
Gotcha.
tickets,
Okay.
but the majority of them are all through Ticketmaster and are downloaded.
Because every concert
and it's
I go to
quicker
is like
when
that.
they go through the line.
It's great.
Is then they can scan them and go. Paper tickets take a little longer, and sometimes they don't always scan because printing of them is not as always easy as we'd like them to be.
Well, just before we go, and I didn't tell you I was going to do this, but I was reading through my periodical, and I want to say congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
I saw this, and I didn't even go to Cuca. Look at that. Look at that beautiful write-up. So congratulations. That's neat.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I was happy when I saw that. All right, well, best of luck next week. Let's talk again soon because I want to hear how it all goes, okay?
I'd love to. Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you so much to Don Burlew for being our guest. It's hard to believe next weekend kicks off race weekend at the Glen, and we're glad to learn about some of the new programs. I think that's really cool about Syracuse football partnering with number 44. That'll be one to watch. Not saying I'm rooting for anybody specific. I just think that'll be neat, and just so much going on this year. We appreciate Dawn taking time because this is her busy season. All right, we have so many great comments that came in during our conversation. Let's get right to them. During the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program, Steuben Senior Services Fund, empowering seniors to age at home. Don't want to spill my drink. All right. Morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Sergeant Dave. I haven't heard from you a little bit. Good to hear from you. Did it occur to anyone that Eric Swalwell's stunt with the barbells might be fake? Now, I did a little research. I was not aware of this. I don't know how this missed my radar, but Eric Swalwell, who, I'm not saying this because of any political affiliation. When you watch him in these hearings, he very often gets embarrassed. The one with him and Ben Shapiro, he was not ready to get the pushback because Ben Shapiro, love him or hate him, he is very smart. He's very quick on his feet. And it was awkward. But Eric Swalwell trying, and probably just another person trying to make, become the face of the resistance. So what he did is he's lifting barbells and making political points while he was doing it. Awkward, yes. But he thought that was an effective message. Well, Sergeant Dave says, I used to pump iron when I was young, and the technique was to breathe during the repetitions. I've never seen anyone have a conversation while they're pumping iron, and it looks so easy. I think it was plastic weights on the bars. Thank you. I like your thought on that, Sergeant Dave. I'll have to watch the video. Doing the research, I saw just a little clip of it, and I had seen plenty with that little clip. So thank you. Next up, comment from a different viewer. Regarding the anti-natural gas issue, it seems extremely unconstitutional, and New York State should be taken to court over its communist rule. I believe there will be many more court cases in regards to that. Comment from a different viewer. Hochul for president. Yes, please, dear God, let her run. My wife and I were laughing so hard until we realized it might be true. I think Elise Stefanik is onto something there. And the only reason I say that is some of the national attention that Hochul's been trying to get, yes, it's normally in regards to New York State issues. I think she does, in the back of her mind, remember, she's surrounded by yes people. She may very well think she has a chance at running for president. She's got the ego. She doesn't have the talent. She doesn't have the political chops, but she's got the ego. So I think there may be a grain of truth in there. Oh, this was for our guest, but as you know, the interview was pre-recorded yesterday. Ask Dawn how interesting it would be for racing with electric vehicles. Not down with New York State. Yeah, that would be, that'd be interesting, wouldn't it? Pit stops would be, 4 or 5 hours to recharge the batteries. It'd be the longest sporting event in history. Mark writes in, if Hochul runs and becomes president, I'm moving to Canada. Thanks, Mark. Next up, Ken writes in, I honestly hope Kamala runs for president again. It dramatically helps the Republican candidates and gives us some comic relief during the serious business of electing someone to represent America. I think you're right. I think she wants to run. I mean, the fact that she, if you didn't hear us this morning, she did decide that she's not going to run for governor of California. Is that setting her up for a 2028 run? I believe, speaking of Hochul's ego, Kamala has an ego on her. You know that. So, ooh, that's an interesting one. Who would win in that primary, Hochul or Harris? Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Our smartphones are now learning that anybody who's anybody listens to Frankly Speaking. Thank you. Yes. Yep, your smartphones will soon be having ads for Frankly Speaking. No, I hope not. I don't know. I have no knowledge of that whatsoever. But yes, thank you for the kind comments. I do appreciate that. How are we doing on time? We do have to take another short break. But did you see Zohran Mamdani yesterday backtracking on his unpopular defund the police stance? This is after that police officer was shot dead in that Park Avenue senseless attack. I am not running to defund the police, he said in the highly anticipated news conference. Okay. This was hours after he visited slain cop Darul Islam's grieving relatives. Now, there's numerous tweets of him saying the complete opposite. One police source said, people are fools to believe he will help the city. A wolf in sheep's clothing, said another. Now, he didn't want to fund the police to define his candidacy. It's necessary to move on, one person said. Politico put it a little nicer. Mamdani backs away from, quote, out of step to fund the police posts. I'm not defunding the police. I'm not running on defunding the police. Over the course of this race, I've been very clear about my view of public safety and the critical role that the police have in creating that public safety. He has said not that long ago that he wanted to end the exact elite force of police that stopped that attack. Widows of grieving moms of fallen NYPD officers slammed Mamdani's switcheroo, they're calling it. Now, when a police officer is killed, he wants to say, oh, I support the police, said the mother of a slain NYPD detective, Russell Timoshenko. Other relatives who lost loved ones said it's too little, too late. This is breaking my heart all over again. It's the worst nightmare for the family right now. Our hearts go out to them. He also called for a ban on assault rifles nationwide, echoing what Governor Hochul said the day before. He called for, quote, an assault weapons ban, saying a national ban against assault rifles is part of a vision of stronger gun laws. He reported that Hochul pushed an assault weapon, or it was reported that Hochul pushed an assault weapons ban on Tuesday. Well, Mamdani, he had a gun with, he said it was an assault weapon, despite the fact that New York banned such firearms. Although New York's assault weapons ban failed to prevent the Manhattan attack, Hochul's made it clear she believes a ban on a national level would equate to tough on crime. Mamdani echoed her words and called for such a ban to be enacted nationwide and said that if elected, he will lead calls to pass such a nationwide ban. You know what's scary when we talk about the state of New York and the state of the Democrat Party? Remember this when we talk about the gubernatorial race, but also when we talk about the presidential race. A new poll found that Mamdani's support for Palestine, meaning anti-Israel, his criticism of Israel, his kind of, some have called it anti-Semitic language, actually helped him win the primary, according to a new poll. Not hurt him, helped him win. All right. Oh, and they're calling, Politico has a piece, The Rise of Zohran Derangement Syndrome. Having somehow equating it to Trump derangement syndrome, which is so obvious even to those that don't like Trump. They're saying that if you disagree with Zohran at all, it's Zohran derangement syndrome. The people are just freaking out over this person. Well, he wanted to fund the police. He stood by anti-Semitic language. The list goes on and on. The lightning rod mayoral candidate's defenders were quick to respond. You don't need to read 16,100 tweets to know that. He says it on his website. He is who he is, blah, blah, blah. All right, enough on that. John Thune says that if Zohran Mamdani wins, it's big trouble for the Democrat Party and Chuck Schumer, who faces a potential AOC primary threat. Let's take a break. Then we're going to wrap up. I'm going to take a back-to-back break just so we can catch up and have just a moment to talk here at the end. So stay with us. Keep those comments coming in so I can read them in the last segment. We'll be right back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are going to take another short break. I didn't need to rush it that quickly because I want to read these comments, and then we'll read other comments when we come back as well. No, let's do this. Let me get through a couple stories, then we're going to read your comments. So keep getting those comments in. I'd love to do the last segment of just what you have to say because we've been having a blast this morning. It went too quick. This show is too much fun. How we ever did an hour is impossible to even imagine. Hey, Jimmy Gomez said the truth out loud accidentally. He said the future of our country depends on Democrat-run states redistricting to add seats to the House of Representatives. Yes, gerrymandering is the future of our country, according to Democrat Jimmy Gomez. Can't win by following the rules. Might as well cheat, right? Pelosi said Governor Newsom is right. The 2026 election is being rigged. Okay, so now we've got election deniers. Good. Did you also see that Pelosi scolded Jake Tapper? Jake Tapper said, this afternoon, President Trump mentioned you, and he made an allegation about your investments. And then he played the clips. After the clip played, Tapper said, we seem to be having some... Let me just read what he said. I'm sorry, we had some sort of technical issue. Okay, so they didn't play the clip. Nancy Pelosi became rich, and Pelosi interrupted. Why do you have to read that? We're here to talk about the 60th anniversary of Medicaid. That's what I agreed to come to talk about. Ooh, wow, the elitist mentality. She agreed to her left-wing media. You only ask her the questions that she's been prepared for. Wow, that's what I agreed to come to talk about. If that doesn't show you who Nancy Pelosi are and the Democrats are when they get to work with their friendly friends in the media. Tapper said, yeah, but I want to give you a chance to respond. He accused you of insider trading. What's your response? She said, that's ridiculous. In fact, I very much support stopping the trading of members of Congress. Not that I think anybody's doing anything wrong. If they are prosecuted and they go to jail. But because of the confidence it still instills in the American people. Don't worry about this. But I have no concern about the obvious investments that have been made over time. I'm not into it. My husband is. But it isn't anything to do with anything insider. Well, she's against it. She's only made a fortune off of it. She's against it. All right. Taking a break. When we come back, reading all your comments. Get the last ones in. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. And let's go to the Stu Ben Senior Services Fund section of our program, where we read viewer comments, and we got a lot of them. Sit back, relax. Good morning, Frank. Good morning, Steve. I used to go to Watkins Glen racetrack for so many different events each year. For years, I would camp at IMSA events, amongst others. When they started assigning camp areas for IMSA, I paid for my regular location only to get a campsite down below the NASCAR straight in Section H. For 3 years, I tried to get my spot back, even though I did pay for it. They wouldn't give it back to me. Now, with the prices of tickets at Daytona International tracks, it has just become not worth the time or the money. There are hardly anyone for events this year. Maybe they will learn their lesson for overcharging and pricing events out of the reach of the loyal customer they used to have. They even canceled the wine festival this year. Maybe they'll put in a baseball field soon, like Bristol did. Thank you very much, Steve. Comment here from a different viewer. Frank, if you need a good belly laugh, you need to check that out. That's the Eric Swalwell working out, making comments in between reps. However, I think it is a foam barbell prop, and he still broke a sweat. Thank you. I'm glad you guys brought this to my attention. I will watch it because I find the awkwardness of Eric Swalwell very interesting. Also, if you want to go back, how many years? I couldn't even tell how many years. There was that infamous video that he was giving in an interview where a noise hit in the background that some people suggested may have been, well, I'm not even going to say. You'll have to look that up for a history lesson. Comment from a different viewer. I agree with Ken. A little levity helps during the campaign season. She's a gift that keeps on giving, meaning Kamala Harris. Comment from a different viewer. Given Mama Donnie, I don't think it's impossible for Cuomo to become the next mayor of New York City. I don't either, but it is an uphill battle. I've got to admit. You know, I'll eat crow. I thought Cuomo had a shoe-in. I didn't take into effect that he was so arrogant. I knew he was arrogant, but that he wasn't going to campaign, that he just thought he had it. That one surprised me. Okay. But yes, I mean, there is still a window there. It's a tough one, though. Mama Donnie's running away with it in the polls. Next up, Ken writes in, I have to push back slightly. Hochul isn't surrounded by yes people. She is surrounded by her handlers. That's a fair point. That's a fair distinction, Ken. She is the perfect replacement for Biden. She will do and say anything that her puppet masters tell her. Yes, I agree. Yes men is kind of the cliche term that I use because it's, something that, let's face it, everybody around her is saying, yeah, you could run. But there is more to the handling aspect that I think you're right there. Comment from a different viewer. Frankly, imagine a high-speed EV pileup during a future NASCAR race at the Glen. The race would be postponed for the hazmat crew to secure and clean the area. Then we'd have to wait a few weeks until the EPA confirms it's safe to resume the race. Yes, longest racing in history if they went to all EV cars. Yeah, pileup. The danger of that. I mean, the drivers I know can get out of a car quickly, but that quickly with the fires that they have that rage. Comment from a different viewer. I remember when Jake Tapper, the Pelosi interview was happening, and she basically threw her husband under the bus. Absolutely. She definitely did. Comment from a different viewer. This is very kind. Frank, you are doing a great job. As for your time issues, Big Fox needs to give you another hour for your show. Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. I will say if that ever happens, it's going to be the hour after, not the hour in front. This early morning stuff. All right, I'm having a blast. Thank you so much. Taxpayers on the hook for $163 billion worth of project overruns, including the controversial Fed renovations, according to the new Senate report. $163 billion worth of project overruns. And we don't need Doge, and we don't need to take a look at these things. To show you how bad the media is when in their bias and their... Listen to this. There's an article. His name is Jesus. So you read it, and it looks like Jesus. His name is Jesus. He's a carpenter, and ICE arrested him. That's the media for you, folks. All right. Yes, we had a lot more to talk about, but we are out of time. Thank you to our guest, Don Burlew. Thank you to all the great comments this morning. What a blast we had together. Join us when we have just as much fun, if not more, tomorrow morning and every weekday morning, starting at 6 for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV. Big Fox. I look forward to it already.